This tutorial is going to walk you through step by step several of the problems in the Check Your Understanding 10.5, which is found on page 552 in your book, and this Check Your Understanding is related to inpatient bed occupancy rates. Before we start looking at the actual Check Your Understanding, I wanted to give you a couple of steps that I think will be helpful to you. For me, sometimes when I read one of the problems, whether it be in the book or on an assignment, it's easy to get overwhelmed by just the number of words and the information that you're given, and it's hard to know where to start. And so I know a lot of the folks in this class have not taken math in quite some time, and so you may not be in the habit of working with these word problems. And so I just want to give you a few tips for where to start when you're trying to solve one of these. And you just basically have to kind of break the problem down. The first thing to identify is, what information are you asked for? What is the question asking you to do or to solve? What information are you asked for? And sometimes it's, what information are you asked for first, because you may be asked for a series of different things. But figure out, what are you being asked for first. Then once you know what you're being asked to provide, think about, is there a formula to calculate that information? And then what is that formula? Third, your formula has already told you what information you need. So third, you're going to look at, what information have you been given? In other words, have you been given any of the numbers that you need to plug into your formula? And can you plug them in directly as they've been given to you, or do you need to do a little bit of work first before you can plug them in? So that will make more sense, I think, as we work through some of the examples. So let's look at number 1 from page 552. It says, what are the inpatient bed occupancy rates for the following patient care units for the month of August, given the statistics provided in table 10.10? And again, you can see that table in your book. I've just provided a little bit of the information here on the screen for you. But if we take that first step and think about, okay, what are we being asked for? We're being asked for the inpatient bed occupancy rates for specific units or sections of the hospital for a specific time frame, the month of August. So if we make that in the most simple form we can, it's inpatient bed occupancy rate is what we're being asked for. So is there a formula for that? Yes, there is. We know the formula for inpatient bed occupancy rates. You can see it there at the bottom of your screen. It's the total number of inpatient service days for a given period divided by the total number of inpatient bed count days for that same period. So now we can look back and see, have we been given any of that information? Do we know the total number of inpatient service days? We do. We were told that there are 2,850 inpatient service days for the month of August. So we can go ahead and plug that into our formula. Do we know the total number of inpatient bed count days for that same period? Well, we're told that the bed count for the medical unit during the month of August is 100. But remember that bed count is a unit of measure, and that it applies to, or that it describes, the number of beds available during the facility on any given day. So when you hear bed count, unless you're told that it's for a specific number of days, it's looking at one specific day. So that 100 could have been for any day in August, but we need it to be for the whole month of August. So we can do that by multiplying our bed count times 31, because there are 31 days in August. So that gives us 3,100, and then we do our math of dividing 2,850 by 3,100 and then multiplying by 100, since we're calculating an inpatient hospital rate, and we get an answer of 91.9%. Okay. I want you to work B through F on your own. That's good practice, and it's basically the same steps, just using the different numbers for the different units. Letter G is a little bit different though, so we were going to look at that one together. Letter G asks you for total occupancy. So what are we being asked for there? Well, really we're being asked for the same thing, for the total inpatient bed occupancy rate for all of the units. So we're going to use the same formula. And again, we need the total number of inpatient service days. So we can take the inpatient service days in that whole column for each unit and add them all up. So really the only thing that's changed so far is that we're not looking at one specific unit, we're looking at all of the units. So we would add those numbers up and come up with a total of 5,830 inpatient service days for all of the units during August. And then we want to look at our bed count. Again, we're going to add up all of those bed count days and get a total of 205. Again, just like we multiplied each individual bed count by 31 to get it into the format for August, we've got to multiply that total by 31 also. So now we have our numbers to plug into our formula. Okay, we have our numbers for our formula. Sorry, I went forward a slide on accident there. Our total number of inpatient service days is 5,830, and we divide that by 6,355, and then multiply by 100, and we get a total of 91.7% was the total occupancy. Okay, now we're going to look at question number 2. Question number 2 says, in 2012, it actually says in any given year, 20XX, but I'm going to put 2012 here just to make it more simple. In 2012, Community Hospital had 67,120 inpatient service days for adults and children and 4,850 for newborns. The bed count for adults and children was 220, and the bed count for newborn bassinets was 22. What was the average daily census for adults and children? So what are we being asked for here? Again, we're being asked for average daily inpatient census. Is there a formula for that? Yes, there is. We know that average daily inpatient census can be found by dividing the total number of inpatient service days for a given period by the total number of days in the period. So, are we given any of that? Well, we're told that there were 67,120 inpatient service days for the year 2012. So that becomes our numerator, 67,120. And then we're going to divide by the total number of days in the period, which the period we're working with here is 2012, or a year. So we're going to divide by the total number of days, 365, and get 183.9. That's the way to work that one out based on a formula. You may have just been able to determine by looking at that. Okay, you may know that the average daily inpatient census is equal to the average inpatient service days, and so you may have been able to just calculate that without plugging it in. Okay, now we're going to look at letter, let's see, that says G, but I apologize, that should actually be C. I was going to look at what was the inpatient bed occupancy rates for adults and children. I skipped over the letter B because it's about newborns, and I want you to work that one on your own. But letter C says what was the inpatient bed occupancy rate for adults and children. So do we have a formula for inpatient bed occupancy rate? We do, and you can see it on your screen there. So we just have to look at, are we given any of that information? Well, we've been told that there were 67,120 service days, so we can plug that in. We need to divide it by the total number of inpatient bed count days for the same period. Well, we know that the bed count was 220, so that would be for any specific day. We've got to multiply, and you can see this over here on the side of your screen, the bed count 220 by 365, the number of days in a year, so that we can get it into the same time period. So that gives us 80,300, and that becomes our denominator. So we divide that out, multiply by 100 since we're looking at an inpatient rate, and we get 83.6% as our answer for that one. Okay, go ahead and work through those others so that you will get some hands-on practice, and please let me know if you have any questions.